The streets of Sri Lanka have been filled with protest as an economic crisis grips the country. In July, Sri Lankans stormed the president's palace, forcing him from power.
For the first time of the history, people's power came up to change the system.
Protesters are calling for the President Rajapaksa to stand aside.
I've been covering the unrest in Sri Lanka all year. Protesters were feeling triumphant. But there's a new leader running things now, and protesters are under fire.
Politicians think that they are demigods. So if you hold them accountable and if you ask them questions, the reaction is, how dare they?
We are being hunted. We are being hunted, and our elderly parents and families are intimidated.
Protest leaders are in hiding, and the new president is accused of ruling with fear.
Do you think that arresting people and cracking down is going to fix the
arrest
crisis?
people who broke the law.
The march is just behind me, and right over here is a wall of police.
Pressure is intensifying, but the problems that triggered this uprising haven't gone away.
All of the students have now sat down in the middle of the road, and they're tear-gassing now.
යාන්දුවට මතක් කරනවා. ඒ නිසා අපි කියනවා සෙල්ලම් කරන්න ඕනේ නම් අපි ලෑස්ති සෙල්ලම් කරලා පෙන්නන්න.
It's early morning in Colombo, and I've come to a safe house to meet with one of the leaders of this protest movement, student organiser Vasantha Muthalige. After building trust for weeks, these protesters have allowed us to film them in hiding. They say their homes aren't safe anymore, and they could be arrested at any moment.
සියලුම දෙනාගේ ගෙවල් වලට පොලිසිය මැදිහත් වීම කරලා තියෙනවා. ඒතකොට පොලිසිය ගෙවල් වලට ගිහිල්ලා දෙමව්පියෝ බියවැද්දීම් දෙමව්පියන්ට ගිහිල්ලා උද්ඝෝෂණ කරන්න එපා කියලා පුතාට කියන්න කියන ඒවා එහෙම දැවැන්ත මැදිහත් වීම ප්‍රමාණයක් කරලා තියෙනවා. ඒ වගේම මේ ශිෂ්‍ය නායකයෝ කොහෙද ඉන්නේ කියලා හොයන එකට අදාළව මේ වෙද්දිත් විශ්වවිද්‍යාල ඉදිරිපිට පොලිසිය ඒ වගේම හමුදාව යොදවලා තියෙනවා. පැහැරගත්ත විශ්වවිද්‍යාල ඉදිරිපිට සුදු වෑන් රථයකින්. රොහුව පැහැරගෙන ගිහිල්ලා අතුරු පාරක ගෙයක්වත් නැති තැනක තියාගෙන ප්‍රශ්න කරලා තිබුණේ අන්තරේ ඊළඟට මොකද කරන්නේ?
Vasantha convenes a national student union. They're one of many groups who've joined this protest movement that Sri Lankans call the struggle. Protesters want systemic change. They say the office of the president holds too much power, that it's created a culture of corruption and mismanagement.
ඒ වගේම මේ ආණ්ඩුක්‍රම ව්‍යවස්ථාවේ මේකාධිපති ස්වරූපයක් එක්ක ජනතාවගේ අයිති නියෝජනය කරන්න නැති නිසා ඒ තමයි පාලනයට ජනතාව සම්බන්ධ කරගන්න පුළුවන් විදිහේ මේ අරගල ඉවර නැහැ. අපි වත්තඩංගුඩ ගත්තත් මේ අරගලේ මෙතනින් එහාට මේ රටේ ජනතාව වගේම අපේ සියලු පාර්ශ්වයක දෙලා මේ අරගලේ ඉස්සරහට යනවා. අත්තඩංගුට අරගෙන අපි දන්නවා මේක නතර කරන්නත් බෑ.
This was Vasantha earlier this year. From March, there were daily protests demanding President Gotabaya Rajapaksa step down. Protesters accused him and his brother, the Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, of bankrupting the country, leading to an economic crisis that stripped people of fuel, food and power.
No education, no food. Economy is at a standstill.
The people are living with 1 meal per day. Can you imagine? Can you imagine?
In April, people started occupying a park called Gallface Green, and it grew into a thriving protest village. But things suddenly turned violent when armed Rajapaksa supporters launched an unprovoked attack. Some protesters retaliated, burning vehicles and politicians' homes. July 9th was the date that tipped the scales, when Sri Lankans stormed government buildings like the President's Palace. You probably saw the videos of people swimming in his pool. It forced President Rajapaksa to flee the country and resign, making way for veteran politician Ranil-Rajapaksa. Just hours after he took his oath, the new president sent in troops to disperse the protesters by force. Now it's August, and this is what's left. Police are enforcing a court order to remove all final remnants of the gall-faced protest camp.
This protest brought all the different communities together. This is the first time in the history of Sri Lanka where Muslims, Buddhists, Christians, Hindus, even LGBTQ community is part of the protest movement, which is a drastic change in Sri Lanka. This is a peaceful protest, democratic expression, asking for a change, a just change in the society of Sri Lanka. Now what they are doing is terribly curtailing our freedom of gathering, freedom of expression, and we are being hunted. We are being hunted.
Catholic priest G1 Peiris was one of the icons of this uprising. Now he's moving between churches in the dead of night, hiding from police. Under emergency regulations introduced by President Wickremesinghe, suspects can be detained without a warrant and held for 72 hours before being produced to court.
I heard that they are going to raid the place where I was in Colombo. And then I heard that they have gone to my parents' house. My elderly parents were questioned continuously several days. And we knew that they are really looking for me and the other coordinators of the protest movement. Even the youth who just went into the president's house and other places on 9th of July, they are being arrested.
25-year-old Vimukthi Ranasinghe went to the protests on July 9th, when thousands of Sri Lankans occupied government buildings. His mum Marnell told him not to go.
තදෙන් කියන්නේ මං කිව්වා කරන්න එපා ඕවා ඇත්තටම යන්න එපා රට හදන්න බෑ. එතකොට එයා කිව්වා අම්මී මේ කෑනු ගහන්න මෙච්චර මේ මිනිස්සු රටට මේ පාරට බහිනවා අපි විතර මේක අස්සට වෙලා ඉන්න පුළුවන් ලැජ්ජද නැද්ද කියලා. ඉතින් එයා ගියා අරගල වලට නම් මක් කරලවත් නවත්තන්න බැරි වුණා.
His brother Prashakthi was also worried.
He just wanted to have a better Sri Lanka and I need to go to this. And I'm like, just be careful. And on that day, I think he met some friends and he got that, like the protesting thing in his mind. And since then, he was like going to the big ones, like the main ones.
Like many others, Vimukthi live streamed his movements that day, and people all over the world tuned in. As he continued to join the protests and post videos, he picked up over 4 million Facebook followers.
මයන් අපි ඉන්නේ දැන් ජනාධිපති මන්දිරයේ ගාව අපිට කට්ටිය ගහන්න ඉන්නවා දැන් ඔයගොල්ලන්ට පේනවාද? හොඳ සෙට් එකක් ඉන්නවා ගහන්න. මේගොල්ලෝ අපිට ගහන්න හදන්නේ අද. අපේ සෙට් එක අඩුයි මචං මෙතන. පුළුවන් හැමෝම මෙතන වරෙන් බා.
He also caught the attention of police.
I heard my dog barking and I'm like, who's there? And then there was police, like 6 of them were downstairs. They went to his room and took his PC and they took my brother's phones. He had 2 phones. When my mom came back in the evening and she was like, your brother is now in the prison. Like I just like felt like a dream. Oh, I must be dreaming. I might wake up sometimes. Felt like that because sometimes the dreams feel real and stuff. Yeah.
Vimukthi has been charged with threatening members of parliament based on this video.
අපිට මෙතන මොකක් හරි වුණොත් එහෙම ඒ පොට්ටුකාරයන් ගෝල් වටලපල්ලා අපිට මේ වටලලා අපිට ගානවා නම් ඇයි අපිට උන්ට ගහන්න බැරි?
He's been in custody for over a week. His parents both work overseas to pay for his younger brother's education. His mum is meant to be in Russia now, but Vimukthi being in trouble has put everything on hold.
ඇත්තටම ජීවත් වෙන්න හරි අමාරුයි ලංකාවේ. ළමයි පොඩි දරුවෝ ගොඩක් ඉන්නවා නම් එතන ජීවත් වෙන්න ගොඩක් අමාරුයි. තියෙන ආර්ථික ප්‍රශ්නත් එක්ක ඉතින් එයා ඒ ගැන තමයි කියන්නේ. අනික කඩේට ගිහිල්ලා ඒගොල්ලන් හාල් කිලෝ 10ක් ගන්නකොට තව කෙනෙක් හාල් කිලෝ 1ක් ගන්නකොට එයා කියනවා දුකයිලු ඒක.
I had like this little hope that every day, oh, he gonna get released someday, and we gonna go back to what it used to be. Like when he's at home, now it's like dead silent. But when he's at home, we just gonna watch some memes, funny videos, movies together. It's just not there anymore. So yeah, it just feels so empty and like lonely.
I don't think that they are targeting only Vimukthi. Most of the youth now using social media to express their ideas. So these police want to just mentally, it's just like a psychological threat to others not to share these posts and create a fear among the suspects and the public.
Attorney Nuwan Bopage is representing Vimukthi and other protesters, including student leader Vasantha Muddalige and priest Jiwantha Piras. He's assembled a team of lawyers around the country to work for free for the movement. His activism has put him in the firing line as well.
You could see as to how they dragged me to their side.
This is Nuwan on July 22nd, when troops were mobilised to clear the Gallface protest camp.
They wanted to take into custody one very disabled person. Then actually I defend him and I showed my identity card and I told him I'm a lawyer, don't assault him, don't take him to custody. But that army troops dragged me into their side and they assaulted me and handed over to the police.
Nuwan has been charged with unlawful assembly and is on bail awaiting trial. He's also fighting a complaint by the Inspector General of Police, seeking to have him struck from the legal profession. How do you feel about that they're targeting you like this?
Yeah, I think it's absurd because as a lawyer, I have a right to defend my clients. At the same time, to be a lawyer, I need a country first. Without a country, I can't do whatever profession. So therefore, to protect the country, we have to protect these protesters who actually fought for the sake of the society, not because of their own betterment.
I've been invited to a secret location along with a few local journalists. Many of these protesters, nurses, monks, teachers have been hiding for weeks, but they're risking it all to announce the next stage of their struggle. For Vasantha Muddalige, it's a chance to throw out a challenge. His student union has decided to get back on the streets in their first major protest since the closing of the Gallface camp.
දැන් එහෙමනම් අපිට තියෙනවා තවමත් නොවිසඳුණු ප්‍රශ්න ප්‍රමාණයක්. අපි දන්නවා පාසල් ශිෂ්‍යයන්ගේ අධ්‍යාපනය කඩා වැටිලා, විශ්වවිද්‍යාල ශිෂ්‍යයන්ගේ අධ්‍යාපනය කඩා වැටිලා, දවසට වේලක් කණ්ඩ විදියක් නැති නිසා දැවැන්ත අරුබුදයකට ගිහිලා තිනවා. හැබැයි ඉතිහාසයේ පළවෙනි වතාවට ජනතාව ආණ්ඩු දනගස්සලා පෙන්නලා තිනවා මෙන්න මේ බලය අරගලය ඉවර නෑ, දිනෙනතුරු හැරෙන්නේ නෑ.
ඉතින් ඇත්තටම එයා එහෙම කිසිම දවසක පොලිසියකවත් එහෙම ලොකාටවත් අසාධාරණයක් කරලා එහෙම රිමන්ඩ් වෙලා පොලිසිය ගිහලා එහෙම මොනවත් නැහැ.
It's the day of Vimukthi's bail hearing and his mum and grandma are on their way to court. He's been in custody for 10 days and they're worried about his mental health.
අපිට පුළුවන් හැමදේම ඉතින් කරා ලෝයර්ස්ලා ඇල්ලුවා බලන්න ගියා. ඔක්කොම කරා ඉතින් දැන් ඉතින් එළියට ගන්න එක තමයි ඕනි.
Across town at another court, Father Jiwantha Piras has also been ordered to appear. Nuns and priests have turned out in force to support him. After more than 2 weeks in hiding, Father Piras has decided to hand himself in and face charges of unlawful assembly and entering the president's palace.
I'm prepared for this mentally and spiritually because I knew right from the beginning with this protest movement that we'll have to face the consequences.
Back at the magistrate's court, we wait for Vimukti to show. After an hour or so, a busload of defendants arrives. Among them are several protesters. Finally, we see Vimukti wearing a black face mask. It's hard to follow from outside, but we see he's been moved to a holding cell. Nuwan arrives with one of his solicitors. He and his colleagues are appearing for protesters at courts across Colombo today. After a hearing that took several hours, Father Pyrrhus is granted bail.
එනිසා ඒක මගේ අරගලයක් නෙමෙයි මේ පුදි ජනතාවගේ අරගලයක් පීඩිතයන්ගේ අරගලයක් අපි හැමලෑම හිටගන්නේ පීඩිතයාගේ පැත්තේ ඒ නිසා මේ අරගල ඉවර වෙන්නේ නැහැ සාමකාමීව ඉදිරියට ගමන් කරමු.
Vimukti's mum is back at court after just scraping enough cash together to post bail for her son. Moments later, they come out together.
ඔව් ඉතින් බොහොම අමාරුවෙන් එළියට ගත්ත සතුටුයි එළියට ගත්ත එක ගැන මේ ආයිත් එහෙම ලොකුවට දේවල් හිතලා නෙමෙයි අරගලේ කරලා තියෙන්නේ. අර ගිහලා තියෙන්නේ. යාගෙන් අහන්නකො විස්තර.
රට වෙනුවෙන් අරගලයක් කරා හැමෝම. රට වෙනුවෙන් අරගලයක් කළා හැමෝම. නමුත් අරගලේ මේ වෙලාවට අපි කවුරුත් හිතුවේ නැහැ. අපි හැමෝම ස්වාධීනව කිසිම පක්ෂයක් නැතුව කිසිම පාට පක්ෂ නැතුව මේ අරගලේ සම්බන්ධ වුණේ. එළියට ගියාම ඇත්තටම රට ලස්සනම රටක්. මේ රට මං හිතන ලෝකේ තියෙන හොඳම රට. මේ රට ගහන රටක් නෑ. කියන්නේ මේ රට තමයි ලෝකෙ තියෙන සුන්දරම රට. නමුත් සුන්දර රටේ පාලකයන් සුන්දර නෑ. පාලකයන් සුන්දර නෑ. නීතිය ස්වාධීනත්වය තියෙන්නේ දීප දෙනාටයි. දුකයි ඉතින් ඉස්සරහට යන දේවල් එක ගැන. ඉතින් මං හිතන්නේ මට හිතාගෙන ඉස්සරහට මොනවද කරන්න කියලා.
Vimukti's next court date is more than 2 months away, and his case could take years to finalise.
The criminal justice system here is very slow. So the process becomes the punishment.
God, come on.
Ambika Satkunanathan is the former Commissioner for Human Rights in Sri Lanka.
The lawyers need to basically scream and shout and say...
This is not justice. This is reprisals for protest to teach them a lesson and to ensure that others don't protest.
Can you tell us what's changed since this new president, Ranil-Rajapaksa, took over?
I would say he is different to the Rajapaksas in that, the Rajapaksas tend to be brutal. The regime can be very brutal, ruthless. Ranil Wickremesinghe is also a very intelligent man. He will use the law to crush dissent, to restrict rights. The government is making the law a joke. The prosecution has become persecution.
Hello, President. How are you? Nice to see you again.
Okay.
Ranil Wickremesinghe has been in politics for 45 years and been Prime Minister 6 times, though he's never finished a term. The former lawyer has sold himself as a champion of democracy and the answer to Sri Lanka's current crisis.
President, since you came to power, authorities have been targeting the protesters. There have been many, many arrests. Is that actually going to fix Sri Lanka's crisis that you're facing at the moment?
I don't think going and burning government houses will fix the crisis. We have to all realize that. Do you think occupying the president's house or burning my house, or occupying the prime minister's house, or coming to occupy the parliament, do you think any of them would have solved our problems?
Do you think that arresting people and cracking down is going to fix the
We arrest
crisis?
people who broke the law. I am not the one who does it. It's been left to the police, like in your country. And the police have decided to charge them. Everything has been done legally.
Many protesters, like Father Jivanta, a uni leader called Vasantha, there's a lot of people who
Those are. I know the groups you spoke to. I know the groups you have spoken to. You are trying to put the case of these minority to me, and I am answering on behalf of the majority.
Do you understand a majority of this country is suffering at the moment?
I understand the majority of the country is suffering and they want a solution. They were not out there.
Do you have the majority backing though? That's
I
the
have the
question
majority
of your country.
In the country, yes. I am the one who said the correct thing, go to the IMF. That's why there's confidence back in me. That's why there's confidence in me, that I can deliver.
It's true, Wickremesinghe has made progress on a bailout with the International Monetary Fund, or IMF. That bailout comes with a raft of conditions. Meeting them will probably mean job cuts and tax hikes, and it could push people back onto the streets. It's the day of the protest organised by the student union. We're on our way there when we're pulled over by police.
We've just been pulled over for a second time by Sri Lankan police. They're searching our vehicle. They said they've got information on our car specifically. They think that we're concealing someone in this car, so feels like a lot of pressure today, especially considering that yesterday when I interviewed the president, he said that he knew exactly who we've been speaking to this whole time.
Police are out in force as people gather for the march. But student leader Vasantha is nowhere to be seen.
There have been busloads and busloads of people arriving here. The crowd is really gathering and they're going to march through the centre of Colombo soon.
It's the first major protest since the Gallface camp was shut down. Nobody knows how police will respond. In the oppressive heat of midday, the march gets moving, with chants and banners calling for Ranil Wickremesinghe to step down. About half an hour into the protest, Vasantha suddenly appears. You can feel a buzz rip through the crowd.
අපි කියනවා අපි රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහට බය නැහැ සෙල්ලම් කරන්න ඕනේ නම් අපි ලෑස්ති සෙල්ලම් කරලා පෙන්නන්න සෙල්ලම් කරන්න ආව ගෝඨාභයට මහින්දට මොකද උනේ කියලා මතක් කරගන්න රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහටත් ඒ ඉරණම තමයි.
The march continues along one of Colombo's main roads. It's orderly and contained. Protesters are careful to stay in one lane. But they're walking straight into confrontation.
The march is just behind me, and right over here is a wall of police. There are 2 tear gas vans, and they're both just stopped. It's a bit of a stalemate, but they're going to have to collide at some point. Vasantha, who is on the run from the police, is right at the front here.
Police issue a warning to clear the area, threatening to use force. But the frontline protesters aren't budging. Police move in behind the tear gas and water cannons to drive protesters back, making arrests as they go. Then I get a message from one of my contacts. He says Vasantha got away on a motorbike. But he didn't get far before being arrested. It's the morning after the protest, and I've come to a Colombo police station where some of the protesters are being held, including Vasantha. Lawyer Nuwan Bopage has just been with him.
Hello.
Hi. How are you?
Fine, Aman.
So what's happening in there?
Actually, according to police now, they are going to charge under Prevention of Terrorism Act. That is one of the draconian laws in the country. They can detain suspect for more than 3 months without producing to court. That can be extended for 2 years. It's a grave violation of fundamental rights of Vasantha because it's very clear there's no terrorist element on his part. So what is the meaning of this?
The Prevention of Terrorism Act has a dark history in Sri Lanka. Human rights advocates say for decades it's been used to target Tamils and more recently Muslims. This is the first time a student leader has been charged under the Act in more than 30 years, and it comes with the personal sign-off of President Wickremesinghe.
අතර මානසික දැම්මට පස්සේ තියෙන ප්‍රශ්නත් එක්ක පළල හැරලා තිබ්බේ. මානසික මම ගොඩක් හැරලා තිබ්බේ. ඊට පස්සේ එහෙම කළා බන්ධනාගාර ජේල් එකේ මම නිදාගන්නේ පැදුරක් දාගෙන මට පළවෙනි දවස් දෙකේ මට පෙෂීට් එක ගන්න පෙරවන්න. අර මම බය වුණා එතන ගොඩක්. කිටිය දවස් 10 මට නිකන් අවුරුදු 10ක් වගේ දේරුනේ.
Vimukti's back at home, struggling to resettle.
Hello. How are you?
Fine.
How are you feeling being out?
මේ එතකොට ඒ පොඩි මේකක් තිබ්බා නිදා ගන්න කීදලම නිදා ගන්න ඇඳේ ඉඳලම මට මේ හිටියේ වෙනමනේ. ඒතොර ඒ ෆීලින් එක මට ගෙදරට ආවට පස්සේ හම්බුණා.
Have you been hanging out today?
I just woke up.
Are you going to go back to the protest now after everything that's happened?
මම දැන් අරගලවලට යන්න බෑ. අරගල භූමියට ගියොත් මාව දැන් මාව මගේ මූණ මම හැමදේම මාව හොයාගෙන ඉවරයි.
Are you angry at your son for what he's done in this situation?
මුලින් නම් කේන්ති ගියා. බොල් කියනෝනේ ඇරස් කරාට පස්සේ අය එපා කියපු දෙන්නේ කරේ. ඊට පස්සේ ඉතින් දැන් ටික ටික තේරෙලා තියෙනවා මෙයා ඉතින් හොඳ රට වෙනුවෙන් ගිහිල්ලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒ කියන්නේ ඉතින් මොකද ජීවේ නැහැ ආවත් මොකද වචනයක් කිව්වේ නැහැ. ඒ ඉස්සරහට මම කියන්නේ කරන්න එපා කියන එක තමයි.
Dissent has value even if one person is dissenting. The fact that they ignore the protest actually makes the case stronger to show the state is callous. They do not look upon dissent very favorably. And that goes back to the fact that our political culture is driven by patronage. It's feudal. Politicians think that they are demigods. So if you hold them accountable and if you ask them questions, the reaction is, how dare they? You know, your job is to just vote and just move on.
After 2 weeks on the ground in Sri Lanka, I see a protest movement under siege, but still determined.
People have not given up. They are continuing the protest in their own way.
Protesters are still taking to the streets, despite the dangers. And people like Nuwan will keep fighting. They say it has to be now or never.
If we are unable to change this system using this struggle, this might be the last opportunity